After the war ended, the camp girls were all trying every trick to get a soldier to take them home, just to avoid being sold off to a brothel. By the time that quiet, dark-skinned centurion came looking for me, there were only two of us left in the camp, me and an old woman who was clearly dying. She looked at me and chuckled. "Hongliu, since someone's willing to take you, just go already. Who are you still waiting for? That glorious young General Pei, who's about to marry a princess?" I told her I needed time to think. That very night, Pei pinned me to the bed. He gripped my jaw hard and forced me to look up at him, his voice low and mocking. "You jealous because I'm marrying the princess?" Then he gave a cold laugh. "You've got quite the temper." He added, "After the wedding, nothing between us has to change. I bought a place just outside the city. I'll be waiting for you there." Not once did he ask if anyone had come looking for me earlier that day, like he was sure I wouldn't leave with anybody else. But he didn't know. I'd already said yes to that centurion named Yuan Zheng. The day he married the princess was the same day I married him. Once the war ended, we were supposed to be sold off as usual to those wretched places. Those brothels were full of all kinds, the sick, the old, the twisted sorts that made your skin crawl. They were hell on earth. So for the past 3 days, the younger ones among us had started trying to cozy up to the soldiers, looking for someone, anyone, willing to take them in. These soldiers had survived the war, and they'd be heading home with some rewards. Even if they already had wives, taking in a mistress on the side wasn't such a bad option. Yuan Zheng showed up after some brute tried to drag me back with him, claiming I should be grateful to be his concubine. I turned him down flat, so he snapped, slammed me on the bed in his rage. "Whore, just a criminal's daughter. You think you can act like a precious lady now? Back when the young general was guarding you, I couldn't get near, but now it's my turn." He didn't get to finish. Someone yanked him off me, slammed him to the ground. It was Yuan Zheng. He dragged the man out of the tent like he was tossing a sack of grain. At first, there was yelling outside. Then, all quiet. When he came back, he stood in the opening of the tent like a wall, all muscle and sweat, chest glistening, catching his breath as he looked at me without saying a word. After a long while, he finally just said, "I can." I didn't really get it at first, but deep down, I knew what he meant. It wasn't just that brute. These past few days, 5 or 6 men had come, offering to take me with them, some even saying I could be a proper wife. After all, I used to be the prized daughter of the Minister of Revenue, trained in music and poetry, known for my beauty in the capital. I turned them all down, but this time I stared straight into Yuan Zheng's eyes. He looked away stiffly, like he owed somebody money. Yet I noticed the tips of his ears had gone bright red. "I need to think," I said. After he left, a faint voice drifted out from the corner. "That might have been your last chance." It was the old woman, the only one left here besides me, barely breathing now. She smiled at me again. "Hongliu, since he's willing to take you, go with him. What are you still waiting for? That flashy little General Pei who's about to wed a princess?" She knew there'd been something between me and Pei. Otherwise, why would a girl like me, still labeled a camp whore, not be sent to serve other men? I was the only one allowed to take my zither and leave the tent every other night. Only someone like Pei, now riding a wave of glory, could give me that kind of protection. She thought I was a fool, hanging on to a man way out of reach. But what she didn't know is I was never the one who wouldn't let go. That very night, after Yuan Zheng had come for me, Pei also had me summoned. I'd barely stepped into his tent with the zither in my arms when someone grabbed me from behind and slammed me onto the table. Pei shoved one hand under my clothes, the other tightening around my neck, forcing me to look up. His kiss was nothing close to gentle. It came down like a storm, fierce and wild. That night, he was unusually rough. From the table to the bed, from midnight to dawn, he didn't stop. By morning, I was completely drained, lying limp against the bedside. Wrapping his arms around me from behind, he asked, "Jealous that I'm marrying the princess?" He paused, then said flatly, "What right do you have to be jealous of her? Hongliu Qi, you're not the prized Jing City peony anymore." That old nickname, it awakened something buried deep inside me. Back in those days, I did have some fame around the capital. The sons of noble families admired me. Qingfeng Pei was one of them. His way of courting was different from the rest. He'd climb to the edge of our courtyard roof and leave a dewy plum blossom on my windowsill, even if it meant risking a beating from my father. During the Lantern Festival, he bribed the courtesans ahead of time. When I strolled past with my friends, the girls leaned from the balconies above, waving handkerchiefs that spelled out Liu in bright colors. My parents and brother scolded him for being inappropriate, but they never knew. When I looked up that night and saw him grinning among the girls, teeth flashing, full of carefree arrogance, I felt my heart skip a beat. Back then, our country had just gone to war with Dayan. Many noble sons were sent to earn their glory. Qingfeng Pei was among them. He left for the battlefield in a rush, and I had neither the chance nor the position to see him off. But at dawn the next day, there was a fresh red plum on my windowsill. Beneath it, a note written in his unmistakable bold script. When I return a hero, I'll come marry you. But he never made it back to me. My father, for backing the wrong side, was sentenced and our house taken. My brothers died. My mother took her own life. I was the only one left, thrown into the army camp as a military whore. That first night, dozens of men stormed in like wolves, forcing me into a corner. So this is the famous Jing City peony, Honglu Chi, thought she was untouchable. Heard plenty of noble brats wanted to marry her. Damn, she's really something. Let us be the first to break her in. I'd never known despair like that. Trembling all over, I couldn't move. I thought maybe it'd be easier to just die. Then, just like that, someone in silver armor crashed in, a blood-stained spear thrust out to block their filthy stares. You dare touch what's mine? Get out if you want to live. 3 years later, I saw Qingfeng Pei again. He was darker, thinner, a scar cutting across his cheek that made him look dangerous. But when he saw me, he pulled me into his arms like I was something precious. Thank the heavens you're all right, he murmured, hands still shaking from fear. Afraid I'd fall sick in that hellish place, he moved me into his own tent. Whenever he had time, he'd take me out to the fields or down by the stream to clear my head. Knowing how I loved the zither, he somehow found one even in that desolate outpost, laying it on my bed like a treasure. I played a tune for him, and he smiled like spring had come early. Just hearing your music, I wouldn't mind dying on this battlefield. Back then, I truly believed he was the one I could entrust my life to. Qingfeng Pei was talented, rising fast through the ranks in just a year. With his protection, no one dared lay a hand on me. But soon, I noticed he was entertaining more at night, drinking, laughing with the other commanders. Pretty young military girls were often part of the party. I could hear things from the main tent, things I really didn't want to. At first, I convinced myself he'd never be part of that. Until one night, he suddenly flipped me over, pinning me down in a way I couldn't bear. I realized what he intended. Instinctively, I pushed him off. He frowned. This too? Forget it. Go to sleep. He walked off to rinse himself, came back and held me like usual. But my mind wouldn't stop replaying the words he hadn't finished saying. They were all fine with it. All in the same position. Why is it just you who can't deal with it? My heart dropped like a stone. The battles became more frequent, and Qingfeng Pei was constantly on the move. He barely had time to see me now. Some soldier, thinking I'd been abandoned, crept into my tent one night, his hand clamped over my nose and mouth, his foul breath pressing against me. I fought back in panic, only to get a hard slap across my face. My ears rang, and my mind went blank. Thank heaven Qingfeng Pei came back just then. He kicked the man away and pulled me into his arms. I thought he'd punish that bastard. But a few days later, I saw the same man again, unharmed, laughing by the fire over roasted lamb. Think the general's really gonna turn on a brother over some whore? He even poured me a drink. Told me women are like clothes, easy to replace. What matters is the bond between brothers. She's sweet, too bad I didn't get a taste. But when I get the chance, I'll make sure she doesn't walk straight after. Our eyes met. He licked his lips. Disgusting. The nightmare came rushing back. I was terrified and brought it up to Qingfeng Pei. He was flipping through some scrolls when I asked. His brows furrowed slightly. He pulled me onto his lap, his fingers brushing at my neck. Hongliu, personal matters aside, his uncle's my other commander. Saved my life. I can't just move against him. And officially, what do I even charge him with? Harassing a camp prostitute? I stared at him, stunned. His hand slipped under my skirt like it meant nothing. Half coaxing, half teasing, he said with a sigh, "You're mine. No one's going to get to you. Just wear more when you step out of the tent." It hit me then. This man wasn't who I thought he was. Relying on him was a dead end. If I ever wanted to make it out of this hell, I'd have to do it on my own. When word spread that the camp girls were being dismissed, Pei heard people had been approaching me in secret. He didn't say a word or even try to stop them. He looked so sure I'd never leave him. When he nipped at my ear, I turned my head away. He smirked. "Feisty, aren't you? Even after I marry the princess, nothing between us has to change. I got us a nice little house outside this city. That'll be our place." He must have already forgotten that red plum blossom he once left on my windowsill, and how 2 years ago, when he held me like a priceless treasure, he promised, "Honglu, when the war's over, I'll marry you properly." But that promise was for the elegant, untouchable girl from the Qi family, not the army girl he turned me into. Everyone else had given up on me, but I couldn't give up on myself. I leaned into his arms, smiling silently. He didn't know I'd already sent word to a captain named Yuan Zheng. I'd said yes. The day Pei married the princess, I left with Yuan Zheng to become his wife in Jiangcheng. Maybe that was my only way out. Soldiers were allowed to take a chosen girl with them after victory, an honor, they claimed. It just so happened that Yuan Zheng wanted me, and it just so happened he was a decent man. The court sent envoys, and the officers were ordered to return to the capital for their rewards. That night, Pei hosted a banquet. Wine flowed, the tent lively with chatter, until someone mentioned, "I heard Honglu Qi is still around?" A few glances exchanged, then someone chimed in excitedly. "Always heard the so-called peony of the capital could do more than just play the lute and paint. She can dance too, right? Why not have her perform for us?" Just dancing. That was how they dressed up their appetite. Pei didn't refuse. A servant brought over the dance outfit while I was tending my bruises. The sheer fabric barely covered anything, especially not the marks Pei had left all over me. I stood there, holding the pile of clothes, saying nothing. Outside the tent, someone was already getting impatient. "What's taking so long? Don't know how to put it on? Need your brother to help?" "I'm not dancing." He paused, then strode straight in. "General Pei gave you a command. You're actually refusing to obey?" "That's right." I pulled out the short dagger from beneath the pillow, the same one Pei once gave me for protection, and drove it straight into my thigh. Blood instantly gushed out. I kept my voice flat. "I said I'm not dancing." He was so startled he bolted out to report back. When Pei returned after quieting the commotion outside, a cold air practically followed him in. He saw the wound on my leg, still bleeding and untreated, and stood there silently for a while before speaking. "Things aren't like they used to be, Honglu. You saying no to one dance? With your current position, what right do you think you have to refuse?" I looked up at him, calm. "And what exactly do you think I am now?" He cast a glance toward the tent entrance, let out a short laugh. "Seems I've indulged you too much. We head back to the capital tomorrow. Except for those who signed marriage contracts with the soldiers. All the camp women are due for hard labor. You'll go too. Maybe it'll teach you a little humility. I'll pick you up after I report in." I jerked my head up. He was seriously sending me to the labor yards? He stared at me for a few seconds, then turned to leave. But I already knew Yuan Zheng had the marriage contract ready. Once Pei set out for the capital, Yuan Zheng would take me back to Jiangcheng. He'd marry his princess. I'd marry the man who truly wanted me. Maybe this was the last time we'd ever meet. General Pei. I hardly ever called him that. He paused mid-step. I bowed politely, offering thanks for how he had looked after me these past 2 years. "Safe travels. I won't be seeing you off." Later, after he returned to his tent, his aide came to report. The spy who had been lurking outside Honglu's tent earlier had just left. That man had come all the way here alongside the imperial officials, clearly with orders concerning Honglu Qi. It wasn't hard to guess. He must be one of the princess's people. The current emperor had only one sickly crown prince, and Xuanhua was his youngest and only daughter, doted on beyond measure. The emperor had declared half of the imperial family's fortune would be her dowry. Marrying her meant gaining much more than wealth. If anything happened to the frail prince, this could be the first time Chen established a female monarch. Of course, a woman might rule in name, but true power would lie with the one she relied on. Back in the day, all the young nobles in the capital admired Hongliu Qi, but the one they hoped to marry was definitely Princess Xuanhua. Qingfeng Pei had been young and arrogant. He loved Hongliu for her wit, her beauty, her innocence. But once her family fell, he started thinking, why not have both? After all, Hongliu had no backing. He didn't need to make her his main wife. So half a year ago, he faked a rescue scene while returning to the capital, arranging for the princess to run into trouble on her way to the temple. He swooped in, saved her, and she fell straight for him. Everything played out smoothly. The princess insisted on marrying him. He was granted the title of prince consort. Hongliu had always been obedient, but Xuanhua, spoiled since birth, wasn't one to share easily. She'd long known Hongliu existed and had never let it go, but it was beneath her to haggle with a mere camp woman. That's why she'd stayed quiet. Unless Qingfeng Pei clearly distanced himself, showed he thought nothing of Hongliu, the princess would never let this go. And truthfully, Hongliu was still far too proud. Bringing her straight back to the capital was bound to cause trouble. Best she cool off somewhere first. It'd also buy him time to settle things in the capital. After marrying the princess, smoothing things out, then he could bring Hongliu back. The house on the outskirts was already fixed up, modeled after her old family home. He hadn't said a word to her yet. Planned to surprise her, because like he'd always said, marrying the princess wouldn't change how he felt about Hongliu. That courtyard was meant to be their home. Qingfeng Pei couldn't help the faint lift at the corner of his mouth, just thinking about how Hongliu might react once she saw the place. But tonight, she seemed off. Something felt wrong, and it left a strange restlessness churning in his chest. Someone come. He called in a trusted aide and gave the order. Watch over her after I leave. Sending her to the coal pits is just for show. If anyone lays a finger on her, bring me your own head. Yes, General. And her injuries. He sighed, shaking his head. Forget it. We've gone this far. It's all part of the act. Let her suffer a bit. Maybe it's better that way. Once everything was settled, Qingfeng turned to the pile of urgent paperwork on his desk. Someone came in holding a thick stack of bright red documents. General, these are the marriage requests between soldiers and the camp girls. They need your seal of approval to be valid. He casually glanced at them, lips twitching with scorn. Men were really marrying those women? The thought made him scoff. He didn't even want to touch the papers, felt filthy just looking at them. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed his private seal over. You do it. It hurt. The sting in my leg woke me in the middle of the night. My body burned unnaturally hot. I knew something was wrong. Still, I refused to ask Qingfeng Pei for any medicine. Thankfully, I'd picked up some basic herb knowledge from the old physician in my family's pharmacy as a child. I forced myself upright and limped toward the tent entrance, hoping to find something nearby. Just as I lifted the flap, I was startled by a towering figure outside. It was Yuan Zheng. He was caught off guard too. The moment he saw my thin clothing, he quietly slipped off his outer robe and draped it over me. Then, without a word, he shoved a bottle of medicine into my hand and turned to leave. Wait. I stopped him. My eyes caught a fresh, gruesome scar slashed across his bronze-toned back. His unit had been sent out earlier today. They'd just returned after clearing out some enemies. He must have heard what happened during the day and meant to bring the medicine, but for whatever reason, stood outside all this time without coming in. Come in. Let me put some ointment on that. He turned his head slightly but avoided my gaze. You're not my wife yet. It's not proper. His words struck something in me. I'd lived under the shadow of camp girl for 2 whole years. Even Qingfeng Pei, who once cherished me, had made me dress like that and dance for others. And here was this man, still caring about my reputation. It was oddly touching. I was about to say something when I heard a few hushed voices behind the nearby tents. Did you hear? The general's not taking her back to the capital this time. He's sending her to the pits. Guess he's done with her. She's such a beauty. It's a waste to throw her away. She didn't want to leave with me before, but if she's left behind, it's not like she gets a choice now. Once the general's gone tomorrow, she's ours for the taking. Heh, just don't fight over her when it's my turn. After I've had my fun, the rest of you can line up. I clenched my fists, my back soaked in cold sweat. It was that scoundrel, the one who'd tried to attack me before and got away unpunished. Still lurking, still ravenous. Don't be scared. Yuan Zheng looked at me, then shifted his gaze toward the tents where the voices came from, his eyes cold. He didn't say much, but something about his calm steadiness made me feel safe. The next morning, drums beat loudly outside the camp. General Pei and the other officers were preparing to return to the capital. I quietly packed what little I had, my hand tightened around a short dagger. I didn't know when those men would come for me. After a while, the tent flap moved. I flinched, then saw it was Yuan Zheng. He carried a bundle on his back, tall and steady. He wiped fresh blood from his face, trying to keep it hidden. Let's go. In his hand was the marriage contract stamped with General Pei's seal. No one dared stop us. But just as we neared the gates of the barracks, a commotion broke out. There's a body by the creek. That wound, it's the Dayan army's blade style. Report this quickly. My heart skipped. I instinctively turned to go check. Yuan Zheng grabbed my sleeve. Don't. It's messy. And then I knew. It was them. They're doing? I asked. He didn't answer. Just quietly let go of my sleeve. Yuan Zheng didn't say a word. I pulled my sleeve back. He looked flustered all of a sudden. Don't be scared, Before he could finish, I gently wiped the blood off his face with a handkerchief. I smiled slightly. Thank you, let's go home. He gave me a long, deep look, then nodded. Let's go home. Yuan Zheng was from Zhangcheng. It's a wealthy city, yet when I looked at him, he didn't seem like someone born into riches. I figured since I was relying on him, I should at least make a gesture. So on the way, I went to a pawn shop and traded the zither General Pei gave me, along with a jade piece I'd hidden. Got 200 taels of silver and handed it all to Yuan Zheng. You're willing to help me leave this life behind, and I have nothing to offer in return. This should be enough to keep you comfortable for a while. I can't repay you with only money. For such kindness, if you ever need me, I won't hesitate, no matter the cost. His brow furrowed tightly. He looked like he wanted to say something, but held back. Where do you want to go? He asked. I don't know. I just want to be free. I could tell he was uneasy, and it made me nervous too. I was afraid he'd try to trap me like other men had. But then he said cautiously, Before you decide, would you stay with me for now? It wasn't an unreasonable request. I also needed time to figure out what I really wanted, and repaying a man who saved my life felt right. I nodded. He let out a long breath, obviously relieved. Let's get you washed up and rested first. He redeemed the jade I pawned and used 50 taels from selling the zither to take me to Zhangcheng's biggest tailor shop. I stared at the lavish storefront, ready to warn him not to blow all the silver. But the moment we stepped inside, the shopkeeper froze at the sight of him, then suddenly shouted at the top of his lungs, "The master of the house has returned!" Clearly, Yuan Zheng wasn't quite what I'd imagined. All along the way, we stopped at big-name shops, tailors, restaurants, jewelers. He ordered freely, never pulling out a single coin. Turned out he owned all of them. Only when we got to the estate did I realize. His Zheng was no ordinary name. He was the heir of the mighty southeast Marquis Zheng Chan. Zheng Chan, true to his name, had built a fortune that rivaled the nation, and Yuan Zheng was the one managing it now. I stood at the gate of the grand estate, overwhelmed. Everyone had come to greet him. Some even burst into tears. Thank the heavens the masters returned safely. They eyed me curiously. And this is... Yuan Zheng lightly held my wrist and said clearly, "My lawful wife." No way. A young girl in a pale yellow dress rushed into the main hall and stomped her foot at his words. "Brother Yuan, you were supposed to marry me." Turns out, Yuan Zheng had refused to marry the noblewoman Rong Yu his family arranged for him. When war broke out, he walked away from everything and joined the army. He was still a Zheng and had inherited a noble title. Any officer with some rank would have known who he was, so he kept a low profile, giving away his military merits to avoid attention. He stayed hidden in the ranks for a whole year. Don't worry, he stood near the doorway in a fitted outfit that showed off his frame, almost distractingly so. Seeing it was late, he didn't step a foot inside. As if afraid I'd get the wrong idea, he said quietly, "There's nothing going on between me and Wrong Yu." I gave him a wry smile. "I know. I've got a favor to ask." He frowned slightly. "Before you leave, would you stay as my wife for a while? If not, they'll keep pushing me to marry." That wedding token should have represented how much I owed him. Yet here he was, asking for help like he was the one in need. I couldn't tell if he was too honest or just plain clueless. But either way, I couldn't say no to him. "All right." His eyes lit up, and a smile crept onto his lips before he could stop it. "I'll go get things ready then." Turns out what Yuan Zheng called preparing was nothing like what I had in mind. The whole Zheng estate was covered in red decorations, with hundreds of servants all dressed in bright red outfits. Dozens of seamstresses came to tailor my wedding dress alone. Every single one of Zheng's businesses had a big red sign hanging out front that read, "Master's getting married. Come celebrate. Half off everything." In no time, Zhang Cheng was buzzing about our wedding. Yuan Zheng even set up banquet tables all down the streets so anyone, rich or poor, could join the celebration. On the wedding day, 8 grand sedan chairs crossed the main street. It was over-the-top lavish. People lined the road, all invited guests. They laughed, cheered, shouting blessings for our marriage. Naturally, quite a few were curious about who the bride was and started gossiping. "Is she that precious daughter from the Yuo family?" "Nope, I heard she's like a fairy descended to earth, and the Zheng family head begged her for her hand." Wow, let me see what kind of enchantress he got. Honestly, even the emperor's daughter wouldn't get this kind of turnout. I heard the real princess from the capital just married that hotshot General Pei, and even that wasn't as grand. Who would have thought I'd hear something about Qingfeng Pei, even this far away? If I counted the days right, he should have already married the princess by now. Must be living it up, charming his way around the court. Then someone added, "Speaking of that royal wedding, I was in the capital back then. The princess made General Pei kneel to receive her as she stepped from the bridal sedan. Whole street was watching. He refused, of course. She got mad right there, face like ice. Awkward scene, I tell you." Really now. I got distracted, and just when I was stepping down from the sedan, my ankle twisted. I gasped, but then a strong arm wrapped around my waist. "Careful, my lady." Yuan Zheng's voice was calm and low. Through the veil, I caught a glimpse. He was in red robes, too, eyes sharp and steady, skin tanned and slightly flushed. I leaned on his arm and whispered, "I think I twisted my ankle." He didn't hesitate. Next thing I knew, he scooped me right up. "What were you thinking about?" I was just, "Today's a joyous day. Don't waste thoughts on people who don't matter." His tone was firmer than usual, a bit forceful even. People around started cheering again. The matron trailed behind, flustered. "Young master, this isn't proper," he responded coolly. "From today, whatever my lady likes is the new rule for Zheng Manor." His arms were both warm and steady as he strode toward the manor, carrying me like I weighed nothing. All around was noise, drums, firecrackers, shouting. But all I could hear was the steady, strong thump of his heartbeat. This wedding was supposed to be something neither of us truly cared about. So why did everything suddenly feel so real? Later that night, after hours of drinking and socializing, he returned to the bridal room, smelling faintly of wine. Seemed a little dazed. When he saw me sitting at the edge of the bed, he paused, looked around, then turned abruptly and said, "Ah, sorry, wrong room." But a moment later, he walked back in. His gaze, a little unfocused, landed on me. Out of nowhere, he gave a goofy little smile and collapsed onto the small couch beside the bed. "It's late. You should sleep." I noticed his outer robe stained with wine and reached out, trying to help him remove it. But he jolted awake and instinctively grabbed at his collar to cover himself. I froze and let go right away. He was out cold within moments. I stared at the red wedding candles, not the least bit sleepy. He didn't want me touching him, probably because of my past, and especially because I'd once loved Qingfeng Pei. For a while today, I almost let myself believe in this marriage. But now, I'm back to reality. This is just an arrangement, nothing more. The next day, Yuan Zheng was up early. With the wedding just over, he had 1,000 things to deal with. When I finally got up, I sat there unsure of what I was even supposed to do. As I was spacing out, a maid came in carrying a few ornate boxes. "My lady, the master said if you got bored today, perhaps you could help look over the household matters." I didn't want to get too involved with the Zheng family. I was about to say no when another maid walked in, holding a finely crafted Jiaowei chin. "If you're not interested, how about teaching at the music house on West Street?" Yuan Zheng always found me something to do, either teaching painting, calligraphy, or guqin. If it wasn't that, then it was helping hand out porridge at the city gates. Every time I tried to sit down and think about what to do next, something new would pop up. I kind of suspected he was doing it on purpose, but the man was busy day in and day out. Still, he always came back at night and quietly slept on the smaller couch next to my bed. He fell asleep so fast, I never got a chance to talk to him. That day, he finally came home early. I was about to speak, but he beat me to it. The manager of our pawn shop in the capital sent word. "A woman pawned a piece of jade, looks exactly like the one you once pawned before. Seems like something from your Qi family." I was stunned. That jade pendant, my mother had split it in half, giving one to me and one to my brother. After he married, he gave his to my sister-in-law. After my parents and brother passed away, my sister-in-law and I both ended up as camp prostitutes. I had asked General Pei to look for her while I was under his protection. He said she was already gone, but her body had never been found. Could it be she's still alive? If it really was her, and now that I was finally free, I had to help her. Yuan Zheng must have guessed what I was thinking. He gently patted my hand and said, "I'll go with you." Back in the princess's manor, General Pei had just returned. Across the wide courtyard, he saw Xuanhua sitting on a swing, letting her maid paint her nails with betel. A young woman lay on the ground, face red and swollen from being slapped, sobbing and begging for mercy. "Your Highness, I won't sing anymore. Please don't hurt me again." Qingfeng recognized her. It was the same singer he had casually praised yesterday while passing by a stage, saying her voice was like a nightingale's. She'd blushed and lowered her head when they made eye contact. A day later, she was dragged into the manor and beaten like this. It wasn't the first time. Since returning to the capital, he'd seen Xuanhua do the same to every pretty face he came across. Dancers at banquets, even pretty young maids in the manor, she dealt with them secretly. Her possessiveness was terrifying. Qingfeng frowned slightly. Xuanhua raised an eyebrow. "What? Feeling sorry for her, my dear consort?" "Of course not," Qingfeng replied with a faint smile. "Just a singer. If she upset you, punishing her makes sense." He really meant it. Just a singer, not worth arguing over. Still, something about it left a sour taste in his mouth. When his eyes caught the first bloom on the plum tree in the corner of the courtyard, he froze for a moment. The more forceful Xuanhua became, the more he found himself thinking of Honglu Qi, her gentleness, that quiet obedience, how she blushed so easily. He wondered if she'd softened even more by now. That hellish place, full of thugs and brutes, must have terrified her. Maybe now she'd rely on him more. He'd have to treat her a little nicer, coax her a bit. Yeah, it was time to bring her back. If he kept her tucked away quietly in the house on the outskirts, Xuanhua probably wouldn't find out. He really missed her. That was around the time I arrived in the capital. Yuan Zheng went to see the pawn shop manager. I was on the street when I spotted a woman who looked a lot like my sister-in-law from behind. I instinctively followed her, only to be stopped by someone grabbing my wrist. I turned and found myself staring right into General Pei's surprised eyes. "Honglu?" I froze too. I'd only come to find my sister-in-law and leave quickly. I never expected to run into him. "They brought you here already?" There was a flicker of joy in his eyes, but it vanished quickly as he frowned. "You shouldn't be out in the open like this. If the princess sees you, we'll both be in trouble." Without giving me a chance to refuse, he pulled me into a nearby tavern. "Come with me." But just as we entered a private room, there was a loud commotion downstairs. Someone kicked the doors open. Guards lined up in two neat rows as a lavishly dressed woman walked in, staring at us with a cold smirk. I was wondering why my husband's been so busy lately. Turns out he's sneaking around here with his sweetheart. Xuanhua swept in, not bothering with explanations, and ordered her servants to take me straight into the princess's residence. If he's so fond of her face, maybe I should just peel it off and hang it over his bed. Wouldn't that be lovely? Your Highness! Qingfeng Pei stepped forward, putting himself between us. It didn't help. In fact, it made things worse. Xuanhua's smile vanished. So you're protecting her now? Have you forgotten who you are, husband? She glanced between me and Qingfeng, then grinned. Tell you what, you ruin her face yourself, and I won't bother her again. His fists clenched. He knew she wasn't bluffing. He took the dagger she held out, hands shaking, eyes full of pain and conflict. Step by step, he walked toward me. Honglu, I need to do this to keep you safe. Your Highness, I cut him off, facing Xuanhua. If I can help ease what's on your mind, could you spare me? Xuanhua's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Go on, I'm listening. I leaned in and whispered into her ear. Her expression turned from confusion to sheer shock. Moments later, she burst out laughing. Honglu Qi, you're something else. She looked like she wanted to say more, but a servant rushed in. Your Highness, the Crown Prince has arrived. Xuanhua immediately fixed her clothes and went out, ordering her maids to lock me in a side room. Not long after, Qingfeng jumped in through the window. Honglu, I'm sorry you had to endure that. He reached for my hand, and I pulled away. His face darkened. Can we not do this now? If you hadn't shown up like that, she'd never have noticed you were here. So what, I should just stay hidden for the rest of my life, never leave the house, never see the sun? That's not what I mean. I miss you, I really do. His gaze dropped to my neckline. His Adam's apple bobbed. Then he suddenly pulled me into his arms, trying to kiss me. I slapped him across the face. The sound was sharp and loud. He froze. You've lost your mind. General Pei, you're a married man. Try acting like one. He rubbed his brow, frustrated. I already told you. Marrying her doesn't have to change what we have. We're not the same, I said, taking a step back. He seemed to mull over my words. You've changed. Just then, the steward burst through the door, clearly surprised to see Qingfeng here too. Qingfeng's face tightened. Did the princess send you to call for me? Fine, I'll go. But the servant's eyes flicked between the two of us. My lord, I'm actually here to fetch this lady. Qingfeng didn't catch the honorific. He just frowned deeper. What's she planning now? He turned to me, voice soft. Don't be afraid, I'm here. I chuckled under my breath. He was there earlier too, but all it took was one word from Xuanhua, and he nearly mutilated my face. What good was it, having him around? I smoothed down my sleeves. Let's go. I'd seen the crown prince once before, back when I was still allowed in the palace with my mother. He looked even frailer now. Still, wearing those golden robes and sitting at the head of the hall, he carried an unmistakable air of command. But my eyes didn't go to him first. They went to the man standing at his left, Yuan Zheng. Dressed in black, tall and striking, he stood out more than the prince himself. Meeting my gaze, he smiled. Told you, she's just been visiting the princess. The crown prince turned to me kindly. So the Marchioness of Zheng and her highness go way back? Xuanhua sat to the side, her expression unreadable, caught somewhere between suspicion and unease. Then I glanced at Qingfeng Pei. But he was already thrown off. He had just finished his salute and was ready to make a good impression on the crown prince, trying his best not to draw attention to me, and yet that stern man right beside them had been staring at me ever since we walked in, and he even called me madam. Back when Xuanhua threatened me, I tried everything I could to protect myself. I didn't want to bring up Yuan Zheng. I've always known our marriage was out of necessity. It's not something I could mention openly. I didn't want to cause him any trouble. But why would Yuan Zheng act like it was so natural to call me his wife in front of people like the crown prince and the princess? What if one day we go our separate ways? How would that be explained? Does he never plan on marrying again? Left with no choice, I stepped forward to give a proper salute. I once entered the palace with my mother and happened to get along well with her highness. We chatted quite a bit. The madam is from the capital. Which household? I'm from the disgraced Yuanliang Qi family. What? The crown prince suddenly straightened in his seat. Wasn't he the one who formed factions, was accused of disloyalty, lost everything? My father and brothers were executed. I'm the only survivor out of 140 sent into the army as a camp woman. After a victory in war, His Majesty allowed soldiers to bring us home. As a matter of fact, I turned to Qingfeng Pei and gave another salute. It was the prince consort who approved the marriage invitation between Yuan Zheng and me. You married him? Qingfeng Pei stepped toward me in disbelief, but even before he could take a full step, Xuanhua snapped at him. Prince consort, my brother, the crown prince, is still present. What are you doing losing your composure? Silently, Qingfeng Pei clenched his fists and stepped back to sit beside the princess. But his eyes, he couldn't stop staring. Like if he blinked, I'd vanish. The crown prince looked uncomfortable, forcing a smile. Lord Zheng is quite the sentimental man. He was actually being polite. Everyone knew it was ridiculous. A high official marrying a former camp woman? Yuan Zheng just smiled, gazing at me with his eyes full of warmth. Marrying her was the best thing that's ever happened to me. That smile, so sincere, it messed with my heart a little. Yuan Zheng's household had a residence in the capital. The carriage ride back was quiet. He gave me a long, careful look from head to toe, only relaxing once he saw I really was unharmed. Thank the heavens. Xuanhua didn't get the chance to hurt you. I smiled faintly. She didn't because I hit a nerve. Since she got married, Xuanhua had been watching Qingfeng Pei like a hawk, whichever woman he glanced at, whichever girl he complimented. Every day, she put in work to wipe out the weeds around him. Yet not only did it barely work, it made him despise her more and more. Why bother? She's a princess. If she wanted a man, she could have just claimed him. The reason he strayed was because he still had freedom, still had power, still had a restless heart. But if someone took all that away, caged him in, sealed off his heart, then all her problems would be solved in one go. Fear lasts longer than love. That's what I told her, and for a second, her eyes lit up. If she really took my advice, then I'd be in the clear. Because from that moment on, her target wouldn't be me. You hate him? Hate? I said evenly. At the very least, he kept me safe for 2 years. I don't hate him, but I have to survive. With the way Xuanhua operates, the day will come when she's had enough of playing gardener. And when that happens, she won't focus on cutting weeds. She'll go after the ones spreading pollen. That day was going to arrive sooner or later. I just made sure it came ahead of schedule to keep myself safe. I don't owe anyone anything. Yuan Zheng later found an artist to draw the girl who matched the jade pendant, but whether it was her age or her looks, she was nowhere close to my sister-in-law, Rong Yu. I felt a bit let down. Yuan Zheng said, I've added more men to search the capital. We should find her soon. Your sister-in-law might be with her. Just like that, I owed him even more. He probably saw it in my face and added, I'm helping you find your sister-in-law, but could you do me a favor in return? The palace had sent someone to invite him to the mid-autumn banquet, and they specifically asked him to bring his wife. Would you mind going with me, Honglu? This wasn't the first time. He always found some trivial excuse to balance out the debt he knew I could never repay. That evening, he was practicing swordsmanship in the courtyard. He didn't notice me watching quietly from the doorway. He was much taller than Qingfeng Pei, with a broad frame. Every muscle under his skin pulled taut like a bowstring, ready to snap. Where the sword wind swept by, pear blossoms fluttered down. He thrust forward with a quick move, following the blade's line. Then his eyes met mine. I gave a soft smile. The sheer scarf on my shoulders slipped off, brushing down in the breeze, bearing part of my shoulder. His hand holding the sword jerked, and he spun around quickly, about to leave. I stopped him. You're avoiding me? He halted, voice low. Of course not. I stepped closer, making him look me in the eye. Do you like me? He froze, and then slowly his cheeks turned red. It took a while before he finally said, Do you remember that winter 2 years ago when the Dayan army crossed the river at night? We lost so many people. Of course, I remembered. There were no medics, no real medicine. Qingfeng Pei and the other officers ordered the gravely wounded to be left behind. Every night, I'd hear those painful groans fade into silence. By morning, More and more bodies lay beneath white cloths. I had some knowledge of herbs, so I tried to help however I could. One day, while drying herbs, I saw a body twitch. It scared me stiff. I fell over, and a bloodied hand grabbed my ankle. A man covered in blood and dirt was lying in the pile. He looked already dead, but that hand wouldn't let go. I saw he was still breathing, so I dragged him out. The army doctor said his injuries were too severe, better to put him back in the pile. But I had a feeling he might survive. So I left him under a shelter, made up some treatment with random herbs. I didn't know what I was doing, really. I wasn't trying to play the hero. I just needed a reason to believe I still mattered. I'd fallen hard from grace, thrown into war, unsure of who'd win or whether Zheng Pei would live. If he died, what would happen to me? Hope was slipping away. This man became my hope. If I could keep him alive, maybe it meant I wasn't useless. Food was scarce. Because of Zheng Pei, I got one steamed bun a day. I'd tear half off and feed it to him with water. For his gruesome wounds, I just used ashes and leaves. With that messy treatment, somehow he held on. I don't even remember which day it was, but one morning I got up and saw the body pile had been burned. He was gone. Back then, I thought he hadn't made it. I used to visit you often once I got better, he said. If you hadn't still been hung up on Zheng Pei, I would have told you how I felt right away. But you looked so happy with him. I didn't want to intrude. Even now, I'm not sure whether your heart has come back, so I wait. I stood there, stunned. Not once did he ever treat me like I was just some fallen woman. He turned me down all this time because he thought I still loved someone else. He's been holding himself back, giving distance to a woman whose heart belonged elsewhere. What a good man he is. Yuan Zheng gently pulled my robe back over my shoulder. With a calm breath, I pulled my hand back. Qingfeng, don't. But in the next moment, I took his hand and laid it over my chest. He could feel my heart beating against his palm through the layers of fabric. You feel that? It's beating again, and only because of you. Yuan Zheng stared at me, eyes deep and unreadable. I stepped in closer, my skin brushing against his burning warmth. You went through all that trouble to marry me. Aren't you going to do something about it? I leaned in, my voice soft against his ear. My husband. The sword slipped from his hand as he swept me into his arms and strode straight toward the room. I really misjudged this. I figured since he'd just finished sword practice, he'd be too tired. But I forgot. People are different. He seemed to have an endless supply of strength, dragging me from the desk to the bed, from sunset all the way into dawn. As I lay there, drenched in sweat, a single thought darted through my head. His swordsmanship had always impressed me. That day, with the pear blossoms falling under the rain, the way he handled the blade, so precise and fierce, it left a mark in my memory. 3 days later, at the palace's mid-autumn banquet, our carriage pulled up just as the one from the princess's residence arrived too. Yuan Zheng helped me down. Lifting my eyes, I saw Zheng Pei stepping out, looking exhausted, dark shadows under his eyes. I'd heard the princess's household requested leave for him. Apparently, he wasn't well. Someone else had temporarily taken over his command in the imperial guard, and the emperor had approved it. So now Zheng Pei held no official post, just a princess's husband. While he seemed distracted watching me, a sharp voice from inside his carriage snapped. "Consort, why haven't you helped the princess down yet?" His hand clenched at his side, then loosened. Without a word, he turned and offered his hand to help the elegantly dressed Xuanhua alight. Seeing us, Xuanhua smiled brightly. "Lord Zheng, madam, you're here too? Let's go in together." I returned the smile, not bothering to bring up the past. I was about to look away when I caught Zheng Pei staring fixedly at the faint marks on my neck that hadn't been completely hidden. His pupils trembled, as if hit by a truth he didn't want to face. Even the old maid's rebuke hadn't made him react. Yet now, fists clenched, he took a step toward me, almost involuntarily. Immediately, Yuan Zheng stepped in front of him. His smile was in place, but the tone couldn't have been colder. "It's scorching today. Shouldn't the consort be shading the princess?" Xuanhua let out a dry laugh. "What's gotten into you, consort? You look dazed." Awkwardly, Zheng Pei stepped back, forcing a laugh and held up the parasol over her. "My mistake. I wasn't thinking." "Humph. A eunuch like Xiaodezi is more attentive than you. Think about that. Xiaodezi, the eunuch who served Xuanhua, just got name-dropped. That line wasn't just a jab, it was a slap. The veins on the back of his hand bulged. Still, he calmly said, "Princess, when will I return to duty?" Xuanhua tittered behind her fan. "When you learn your place, maybe." And what did learning his place even mean? Only Xuanhua had the answer to that. Qingfeng Pei turned pale. He followed along behind like a shell of himself. During the feast, I accidentally spilled wine and went to change. Just as I shut the door, someone dropped from the rafters. Before I could scream, a hand clamped over my mouth. Qingfeng Pei stared at the marks on my neck, eyes full of rage. "He touched you?" I had to pry his hand off just to breathe. "I'm his wife now. What we do together, what's there to question?" No, that can't be." He shook his head. "You said you've always loved me, and that man, and you'll really be left with nothing." Qingfeng Pei looked stunned. As the guards dragged him away, he turned back and kept his eyes on me. I couldn't tell what that look meant. Anger? Begging? It didn't matter anymore. This was probably the last time we'd ever see each other. Yuan Zheng once said the princess probably brought him to this play to catch a drama between me and Pei Qingfeng, an old flame rekindling. Turns out, Qingfeng Pei was the only one caught in the fire. On our way back, Yuan Zheng kept smiling to himself. I looked at him sideways. "What's got you so pleased?" He wouldn't admit it. Nothing. But that night, he held me from behind and whispered in my ear, hesitant yet eager, "Could you say that again? That you love me?" Yuan Zheng searched all over the capital for half a month. He finally found the woman with the jade pendant in a rundown temple just outside the city. She was dressed in rags, feeding medicine to a frail woman lying on some straw. I recognized her instantly. It was my sister-in-law, whom I hadn't seen in nearly 3 years. She'd suffered a lot during her years of wandering. Her body was failing, and she was barely hanging on. She had once helped someone out of kindness, and that woman had been looking after her ever since. Yuan Zheng said there was a renowned doctor in Jiangcheng. We needed to take my sister-in-law there immediately. Before we left the capital, Yuan Zheng took a trip into the palace. When he came back, he handed me a decree pardoning my sister-in-law's status as a camp woman. When she gets better, she can stay in Jiangcheng with you, legitimately. I held the decree, my eyes brimming with tears. "That must have cost you a lot to get, didn't it?" Yuan Zheng looked a little embarrassed. "We Zhengs may not have much, but we've got some silver stashed away. The war just ended, the state treasury's bone dry. And also, in Jiangcheng there's a rare herb that might cure the crown prince's illness. I've promised to send a regular supply to the capital. That's quite a hefty price." Noticing my reaction, Yuan Zheng quickly added, "It's not all for your sister-in-law." He lowered his voice, seriously. "The crown prince is kind and wise. If anything happens to him, power's going to fall into Xuanhua's hands. And you know how she is, arrogant and reckless. The common folk wouldn't stand a chance." Put that way, it made sense. I nodded and started getting things ready to bring sister-in-law home. What I didn't know was, the moment I left, Yuan Zheng let out a long sigh of relief. His trusted aide, looking both amused and resigned, said, "Come on, my lord, you acting all selfless for the country? Really? You just wanted Madam's sister to stay in Jiangcheng. Now that she has someone close to her here, she won't want to leave. And if the crown prince gets better, the princess won't get any more power, and her husband, your old rival, won't benefit either. Sound about right?" Yuan Zheng smacked him on the head. "If Madam hears you say that, you can pack up and go farm in the countryside." I didn't hear any more about Qingfeng Pei until a whole year later. Sister-in-law's health had improved a lot by then, and we were sitting in the courtyard doing embroidery. The steward had just come back from delivering medicine to the capital. He brought news something big had gone down at the princess's residence. That always silent consort, the prince consort, had broken his leg and seemed to have lost his mind. Wandering around like he wasn't all there. Wasn't exactly a secret anymore. Xuanhua's control was suffocating. At first, she had people shadowing Qingfeng Pei day and night. Then she wouldn't even let him leave the house. Eventually, even his servants were replaced with the princess's own guards. But he was trained in martial arts. broke out a couple times. After that, his body started giving out on him. Xuanhua just smiled at him sweetly. Don't worry, my dear. We only put something mild in your food. It just slowly takes away your martial arts. Doesn't really hurt you. He couldn't take that anymore. Managed to run off and find his father at Pei Manor, who just made it into the cabinet. Qingfeng Pei begged him for help, asked to divorce the princess. But his father just looked troubled and said, "Everything the Peis have now is thanks to the princess. Marriage has its ups and downs. You've got to tough it out." Then he personally walked Qingfeng Pei back to the palace, all smiles, asking the princess to be more understanding. So how did it come to a broken leg and madness? Did Xuanhua actually break his leg herself? The steward gave a vague smile. One of the palace maids said he fell from a tree. A tree? Yes, a tall red plum tree. The red plums bloomed like crazy this winter in the capital. He climbed up to pick one, said it was for someone, fell down, and after that, well, he started laughing and crying all the time, not right in the head. After the war, all of us who'd been military courtesans were supposed to be sold to labor camps. Sister-in-law knew about that time. Qingfeng Pei secretly left plum blossoms under my window. She gave me a wistful look. I didn't say a word, just handed her the little tiger head shoes I'd been stitching. "Do you think these flowers look nice, sister-in-law?" "They're lovely." She gently touched the tiny shoes, her gaze drifting to my stomach. "Wonder if it's a boy or a girl. Have you thought of a name yet?" I stroked my belly, smiling softly. "Doesn't matter, boy or girl, as long as they're healthy. Their father said to name them Zhaoyang. We've both dragged ourselves out of the mud. May this child be born into light, shining as bright as the morning sun." The end.